I was sent to the wrong type of jail. I was moved from county jail in October of 2016, following my conviction of armed robbery. I'm not here to gnar sympathy, but I want to be clear on a couple of things. This was an unfair sentence. Not unusual, innocent man put into jail type of Sherlock, but in the way that they were clearly pushing me towards to being in a particular jail. I had my blood tested, my hair was sent to a lab. They took pictures of my fingernails. I'd never seen anything like it, but I was basically catatonic. I was in a bad place and just wanted it all to be over. At the time, I didn't think too much about the processing. I didn't think about the records that were passed between the guards and doctors, and I didn't care about the blue rubber stamps that were put at the base of every single legal document. I didn't know what was normal and what wasn't. I just wanted to get into the haze and no brain the next 6 or 7 years. I was put in a cell with Leon Soon, a Chinese American man to this day. I don't have the slightest idea what he was in for. Guy looked like an average college kid, but there was something off about him. He just had this look of complete dislocation, like he was miles away. He never looked at you. It was as if he looked straight through you. Then again, a lot of inmates get that. I barely managed to talk to him, but in the first few days, we agreed that to the top bunk, but that was pretty much all we managed to talk about. We had a straightforward schedule: breakfast, work up to 11, lunch, more work, some yard time, dinner. After that, we either got our specialized programming time, religious services, NA, anger management, etc., or an extra hour in the yard. Then back in the cell, lights out by 11. And my first few days, I had to go through a lot of orientation. There were the kind of who's introductions you might expect, but also just someone pointing out to which shelf they stocked detergent in. Basic stuff. I got a job cleaning the beddings. They were so cheap that a firm enough poke would go straight through them, like a piece of paper. Washing them was basically putting them into the shredder. We had to go on such a low setting that they rarely ever got clean. I swear I saw a cockroach in one of the pillowcases once, and the damn thing was still alive after the wash and dry. The pillows were also crap. They ripped easily, and the feathers would get stuck to everything. Probably wasn't a room in this whole facility without feathers littering the floor. Hell, they were even in the yard. Most of them were, in fact, there. We had rotating schedules, so I really got to work with the same people 2 days in a row. I started to recognize a few faces, but people mostly kept to themselves. There was no locker room talk, no bag rates, no bravado. Just people hunkering down and shutting up. Even early on, I noticed something was off. I think it came all down to the yard. People stayed away from the prison yard. No one used the exercise equipment. People just stuck to the walls or silently walked by the fences. There were no loud conversation, no sports, nothing. And as soon as that 3 hours up, people were pushing to get back in from day one. I got the impression that the yard was a bad place to be in, but no one was telling me why. What kind of prison has dust on the free weights? But by the end of the first week, I started to get into the road routine. I was out cold by 10 nights most. Hell, I even had bedding with at least holes in them. Might as well use the luxury. But there was one night when I just couldn't sleep. I lay down, then all of a sudden I'd be wide awake. There was this whistling wind that came down the hall. It just kept echoing in the back of my head. At first, it was a wind, then a whistle, and with no other sound around. It kept growing in my head until it sounded like a goddamn fire truck siren. I'd push my hands against my ears, cover my head in the pillow, but it didn't do a thing. Finally, I just started to mutter to myself, just to fill the air with some other noise. Please stop. I'd whisper. Please stop. And the funny thing, it did. It stopped. The next day I was exhausted. I kept nodding off. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, pretty much any time I could just sit down. The guard was pushing me awake and the other inmates just sort of stared at me. Some of them actively avoided me, like there was something wrong with me. When it was time for the hours, the guards took me aside and asked me to help them clean the common area. No yard time for me. Gotta see some feathers. That night I went to bed as soon as I could, but the moment my head hit the pillow, I was wide awake again. And down to the hall, there was a howling wind that was no way for me to sleep. The sound just kept growing and all the tiredness was just gone Whispering didn't work anymore. I just had to speak out loud. Around midnight, I was still awake. I was just lying there talking to myself, putting words and random thoughts in the back of my head to keep my mind occupied. I needed to drown out the awful droning noise outside my head. I couldn't let it grow further. It was like trying to stop a ship from sinking, one bucket of water at a time. I don't have the slightest idea how Leon tolerated it, but he didn't say a word. Things just got worse. I couldn't sleep that entire night. When I was trying to get up, I could barely stand. I fell asleep brushing my teeth, dropping my toothbrush in the sink. I was so used to talking to myself, but then that I blurred out whatever just came to my mind. I was sleep deprived, exhausted, and just confused, and people took notice. There was one guy, Marlon, who was about as new as I was. Short, athletic guy who was just itching for a fight. I accidentally bumped into him in the lunch, and he went off at me, pushed me out the way of the line, bashed me over the face of a tray, and he started wailing on me. The guards were taking their sweet time, so I just had to take it, but I couldn't. There was something in me that just wanted to hurt this guy. I grabbed his shirt and looked him in the eyes. "Do you want to get whipped, Greenie?" I said. "You want us to whip you?" I don't know where the words came from. It was just the first thing that came to my mind, and a sleep deprivation just forced it out my mouth like a hiccup. What did you say?" he stammered. I asked if the little Greenie wanted a whipping. He backed off. His jaw went slack as he stared at me, unblinking. Just as I found the words out of nowhere, he lost them. His eyes teared up as he backed himself against a wall. The prison guards came up to restrain us. I could see all the fight had run out of him. "See you at the orchard, Greenie," I added. Whip, whip. Marlon broke down. He screamed, tears running out of his eyes. He dropped to the floor and the guards had to carry him out. I thought I felt good about it, but the way everyone was staring at me made me feel like a museum exhibit. I had a sickening wide smile painted on my face, but it wasn't mine. None of this was me. I was losing control and it scared the hell out of me. I was a puppet. That night I didn't even bother trying to sleep. I knew that as soon as I tried to lie down, I'd just be wide awake again. Instead, I tried sleeping on my feet or sitting up on the floor. This time Leon couldn't ignore me. He sat up on his bed looking at me instead of through me. "You want something?" he asked. "You itching?" "Nah," I said, shaking my head. "Just broken. Something's not right." "You phobic? Trouble with the walls?" "Maybe. I don't know. Can't sleep?" "Looks like you sleep all the time. Just not in here." "Yeah," I sighed. "Yeah, that's about right." "They stamped you when you got here? You got any stamps?" "Some, yeah. Blue ones." "Everyone gets blue ones. What shape?" "Don't know," I shrugged. Leon took a long look at me. In those fear-dragging seconds, I could hear the wind outside growing louder and winced. I had grown to drown out the noise, but it was barely working. I might have to scream to keep it together for another tattoo. "They got 2 attempts," he said. He handed a sunflower. "You sure you don't know which one you have?" "Which did you guys ask? What did they mean?" "I got the hand," he said. "Most of us did. No idea what it means, but the sunflowers are always a bit." He pointed at me as he was trying to make a point. "Bad detective. Private prisons," I chuckled. "Bullshit, all of it." Leon leaned back in his bed and closed his eyes. "Yeah," he sighed. "Sorting lessons of flowers and hands like a goddamn dare cake. Probably got a woodchuck and a dolphin stamp too." Leon was out like a light. But as I expected, I couldn't sleep. I paced back and forth, screaming to my pillow and tried massaging my ears. The scratching noise sort of helped, but I still found myself restless. Finally, I got out of my bed and pressed my head against the door. Maybe if I let a wind howl, it'll take pity of me. Maybe I wouldn't get to a point where it just try to kill me or just stop. I didn't care which, as long as something happened. But the strangest thing came to me. As I pressed my head against the door, the sound became more clear. The wind stopped into a whistle, then a gentle hum. The more I tried to lean into it, to listen, the more beautiful it became. Right there, leaning against the door, I had the best sleep of my entire life. The next morning, Leon pulled me as the guards did their rounds. I had to sleep through the night, and I felt amazing. But even then and there, at my best, I could have a little piercing sound. That wind, that whisper was still in the back of my mind. Even now during all the daytime, all I could do was lean into it, to listen, and wave of calm would wash over me. It worried me how easy it was. "You got it through it?" Leon asked. I'm getting there. I wasn't paying too much attention during breakfast. I was zoned out listening to what turned into a melody. Something was speaking to me, but not through the words, through emotions and sensation. So it wasn't a word that warned me about Marlon creeping up on me with a sharpened toothbrush. It was the guards or the other inmates. No, it was something in the back of my mind screaming at me to hurt him. So I did. All I heard was laughter. There was this alien joy springing up my chest, forcing me to my feet. I remember turning around the world, looking different. I felt 4 feet taller. I was looking into Marlon's eyes, but I didn't see him. I saw a teenage kid running through an orchid, hunted by his older brothers who wanted to beat him with a tire. Iron. Whip, whip. When I came to it, I was still laughing. I wasn't my own laugh, and neither was the joy. The howling wind was finally quiet, and I felt stranger in my own body. I couldn't feel my legs, and it took me seconds to just orient myself, to remember my fingers, my feet, my eyes. Marlon was beating on the floor with dozens of wounds, deep bruises, broken bones, possibly brain damage from repeated hits to the side of the head, involuntary twitching, like a fish out of water, his mouth opening and closing like me. He just couldn't find his words. It looked like I beat him with a goddamn tire iron. I was taken back to myself without a word, paraded through the halls like a prize. I could feel the other inmates staring at me, trying to figure me out. As soon as I looked their way, I saw the recoil. I don't know what the hell they seen, but they were looking at me like a goddamn monster. I was locked in myself for hours. No one was allowed back in, and all the while I kept hearing the same thing in the back of my head singing to me, asking me to listen just a little closer. And as soon as I resisted, that noise turned to pain. Within minutes, I was pacing the cell, spewing whatever nonsense came floating through my mind. Nonsense about everything and everyone, just noise. When the guards finally opened the door, I turned to them with us giving a beat. They had their tasers ready. Deb doesn't know if Eddie is really your son, I rambled. You'd think he was premature. But she had that time with Irene at her job that month before. She thinks about you telling you. She thinks that might just be the push you need to finally divorce. It teased her to the neck, and I didn't even feel it. As I dropped to the floor in a spasm, my body was screaming with laughter. You had her on the copier. She didn't even think about you. She hoped to see him next week. And there was something deep inside. I found my own thoughts and words standing by someone else had the reins. I wanted to tear my eyes out to make it all go away, but I couldn't even move my hands. I listened too long and too closely, and now the guards were dangling by my neck. They took me out to the yard. I heard them talking while they were standing next to me, carrying me, but it still sounded like they were in another room. I could barely make out their voices. Hatchet mixed up with better works, they said. Got the wrong class. Shit, we got a boomer. We had a boomer this whole time. It's a goddamn Christmas miracle. He didn't pop up his celly. So why are we taking him out? Just making sure. Protocol. Fuck protocol. Fuck off. They left me in the middle of the yard, lining up a circle around me. The guard. I'd be yelling as stayed inside, weeping over a picture. After a few minutes, I felt a tingle on my hands. I felt like being poured back to my body, like the mind was liquid. It all came back to me, one thing at a time. Language, memories, senses, choices. Suddenly I was standing up. The room was clearer out and open. It was colder than expected. I was even wearing my shoes. There was a stillness in the air, but there was something menacing to it, like the eye of a storm. Nothing's happening, I heard. We take him in? Hold on, look up. From afar, it looked like snow. I didn't even question it. Snow in mid-July, sure, why not? But it wasn't snow. A white feather touched my nose. I looked up to the clouds, and therefore, I saw something looking back. I can't explain what I felt in the sky. It felt like I was looking to the eye in the sky and a possible physical being, but nothing was there. And yet, it spoke through me. Like speaking a mind game of charades with myself. Pictures flashing in the back of my mind, trying to reach an understanding. Hundreds of memories pounding at the front of my brain, every second like a picture being filled up and spilling over the edge. I got nosebleed trying to keep up. My eyes rolled back, but I still felt like I was looking up. It was easier to see with my eyes closed. My mouth seized up from trying to find 1,000 words at once. Instead, settling of noises and grunts. There were parts that were crystal clear. It showed me the memories I didn't know I had. It showed me my eyes opening for the first time. Little hands grabbing my mother's cardigan. Her big 80s glasses making her eyes look like a cartoon. It showed me walking up to my crib, reaching for little toys dancing overhead. I understood what it meant. That we were born with this instinctual drive to reach beyond our means. To stretch towards the sky. To grab and pull down the unknown to us, making it a part of ourselves. That the most basic instinct of my being, was to be here, to do this, to reach up. No, I wheezed. All was silent. I looked down as I floated 6 feet off the ground. No! Memories of long lost dreams came rushing back. Pleasant thoughts you don't want to wake from. Promise of love, lust, joy, and comfort. It was all there, just waiting for me to take it. All I had to do was reach for it, to reach in the sky and take it. But there was something more. That eye in the sky looking down at me, not malevolent, not angry, not evil, just a vast beyond comprehension. I was nothing more than a strand of heat being plucked into the air by a curious farmer. No, no! I screamed. They came running up to me. Guards grabbed by my legs, pulling me down. It felt like I was being torn in half. Part of me desperately reaching upwards and my conscious self holding me to the ground. All the while, the pleasant silence was turning me from a whisper to a scream. We got it. A guard yelled as the weather picked up. Get him out of here. Get him. Something let go off me. The guard on my left lost his breath as he suddenly went limp. With nothing but a whistle, I saw him whistle into the sky. Not a word of protest, not a sound, just a human life growing smaller and disappearing overhead. I dropped to the ground as he scrambled to inside. Another guard fell flat on his stomach as something invisible grabbed his ankles again. In a soft whistle, he was gone, a spot in the dark. Run, come on! The other guards were standing by the entrance, holding the doors open. They were waving at me, desperate for me just to run. But every part wanted me to stay, to reach up, to touch the sky and go back to the place I was meant to be. To feel my mother's cardigan between my baby's soft fingertips, and to look into the night sky with a wonder of what could be. It was all there, and yet my body needed to run. The moment I got inside, I heard thumping, chunks of meat sprayed across the yard, fragments of bones and getting stuck in the barbed wire, fabric torn into shreds. Whatever was up there was happy now, and the howling wind was silent. We all just stood there. I could barely breathe. I'd been so close to surrendering, to give it in. Whatever was up there had no intention of caring for me. There was no love, no joy, no comfort. All I could promise me was a swift death at best, or of the life of a stupid puppet. But for a moment, we all just stood there. We weren't inmates and prison guards, and no more. We were just people just trying to understand ourselves. I got processed the next day. They double-checked my blood. Turns out they contaminated my result. Sloppy work from esteemed people at Hashman Biotech now. This time I saw them clearly stamp my papers. Blue ink in the shape of a little sunflower. I was taken out of state. They said it was a matter of security on the account of getting fights with Marlon. Apparently he broken both legs and his shoulder. Still, I knew better. This wasn't a matter of security. This was about fixing a grave mistake. This prison had a purpose, but I wasn't a part of it. Instead, I did my time in a place with no wind, and I'm out of parole. To this day, I got a shivering on my spine when I hear the whistling wind. I'm scared of my dreams, of my memories. I'm afraid there's something still in me that wants me to go back, to look up. My psychiatrist, Dr. Bogan, tells me I've got an agoraphobic trauma to deal with. She says she has some kind of experimental treatment for it, but I don't know. Overexposure therapy sounds dangerous, but even now, I found myself walking into the middle of the night, my body talking to itself, telling truths I couldn't possibly know to an empty room. Sometimes not even my own language, sometimes in no language at all. Every now and then a white feather still lands on my shoulder. I don't know. I just know that looking up will be the end of me. Or the start.